Nation first, Marines always. My good friend, Lieutenant General John Sattler.
You know, this will probably be the toughest speech I ever give in my life if I get through it. When you're sitting at a table and the last thing happens is the commandant hands you the program and it says 2025, Sattler takes his seat. And the commandant highlights it and says, hey, look at this, baby, you're supposed to be sitting down, not going up right now. But General Kelly wasn't kidding. There's a speech somewhere back in the galley. It's about 9 cards long. It's a little bit longer than the one with my name tag, which I just composed after the waiter decided to take my speech back to the galley. If he's trying to figure it out, we have to let that one fall in enemy hands. It's pretty bad. But I came back from California thinking this is a great opportunity. You know, General Kelly's going to have the first ever log dinner. He probably has 8 close friends. This will be a small, intimate little gathering. So I didn't put a lot of work in it until I got back here, and I go over to see him. Over at INL, I go over and I kiss the Rubik. I go down log way, not hallway. I go down log way. I can feel all the fours of the world. I mean, I'm starting to bristle. I'm starting to think of Mayor's Forstat and all those things that drove us nuts throughout our entire career. I finally get down to his office, and he said, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm going to talk about the fight. I'm going to talk about combat logistics. I'm going to talk about the warriors from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th FSSG, that under the great leadership of that man right there, Rick Kramlich, who was the FSSG commander that did just amazing things inside of Fallujah and just inside the entire country of Iraq during the time 1F was there. And it gets a little quiet in the room, and he said, have you seen this tape, Aaron? Now I'm starting to sweat a little bit because I thought I was on my game. This is going to be good. This is why he brought me back. So he gives me the tape, and I go back, and in the 1F, I rent very cheap cars. Because, you know, when I rent a car, it comes out of O&M, General Hagee, and I watch that money very closely. Well, I go out to the car that I rented. It's a little bit old, and it has an 8-track player in it. So I tell General Kelly later on, I thought this was a book on tapes. I'm trying to cram it in. So I didn't get this, although, you know, General Hagee, I heard you're superb at the beginning, but it goes downhill after that. So then realizing that, you know, I'm probably more into the literary side, the reading side, than I am into the audio tape side, General Kelly said, have you seen the new logistics edition of the Gazette? You know, and again, I'm squirming in my chair now, I feel a little uncomfortable, and I said, you know, I think that came to my house when I left to fly back here. It probably passed me en route. And he said, good news, I've got 300 of them right here. And so he gives me one. He said, listen, if you don't have time to read it all, I recommend you kind of skim a couple articles and take a look at the one. And so I open up, and the first thing I see is General Howe and General Kelly. If you have this on your chair, don't open it. You've just eaten. I want you. This picture exudes confidence throughout the entire operating forces, right here. This is Rick Kelly saying, I've got your wallet, and Mike Howe saying, that's okay, I have your checkbook. It's a great picture, and Joe Howe, you know, you're one of my heroes. You're right there, I got it, sir. And Joe Kelly, I thank you for the kind opening comments. And since the waiter did take my cards, I will make this rather brief since it's past 2025 already. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit is, first of all, General Kelly and the great leaders of INL before him, they started this concept of logistics modernization, and it has caught steam, and it has picked up momentum over time. And the GCSS, I'm going to try to get through this. This is the only part he made me memorize. The Global Combat Support System, GCSS, is the information technology that will take all the legacy systems that we have within the logistics community, and it will give those logisticians, those warriors, combat logisticians that are out forward deployed, the opportunity to have a common operational picture as to where things are, important things that keep helicopters flying, things that keep trucks and tanks on the road. ammunition that keeps the warrior in the fight. They will be able to take this system and interrogate that system and impregnate that system, and they will be able to have visibility, near real-time visibility, as to where things are. So instead of saying, where are the grenades, we're not sure, good. Order 10 more crates. Just keep ordering until we get the first crate, and then, well, we'll eventually use the others. I mean, that's not just-in-time logistics, that's holy hell, there's another crate of grenades logistic. But when you don't know where things are and you're in a fight, that's what you do. And Rick, I want to thank you. You know, I know General McKissick is here, and there's other great INO commanders, and we're bringing in a great one in Rich Kramlich coming out from fighting the 1st FSSG to come in behind you, Rick. He understands combat logistics, he understands logistics modernization, and I think he understands GCSS. If he doesn't, I'll pull him aside and bring him up to speed on it. But you're bringing a great one in behind. But what I really wanted to do tonight, since all the acronyms I know are now on the table, and everything I know about logistics modernization, except that it's important, is on the table. I just wanted to go through the back of my name card with 4 little vignettes to talk to you about what it means, why combat, why it'll never be called logistics without the word combat in front of it. Because inside the country of Iraq, there were no rear areas. There was just the front lines. Even inside your cantonment area, 26 forward operating bases, those forward operating bases were targets. The enemy knew where they were. They rocketed them, they mortared them, they did whatever they could when convoys came out that front gate. When you went out that front gate, you were in a combat zone and you were a target. And if they thought you were the underbelly, if they thought you were a soft target, you became a primary target. Because they didn't care who they killed. You don't have to kill the #1 ranked champion in the world to make the newspaper. All you have to do is make a statement by taking somebody or their equipment down. And the logisticians, let me make it very clear that none of these convoys, not one, had an infantry warrior with them. It was all done by combat service support warriors. Quick story. Going into a convoy brief, it's about 2,000. The brief takes 2 hours. A master sergeant gives the brief. The senior individual going on that particular convoy is a sergeant. And it's leaving Camp Fallujah, and it's going to the Turkish border to pick up 40 tractor trailers full of stuff that's needed to prosecute the battle, to be in the fight, to keep the heat on the enemy. Sergeant Major and I go and we attend the briefing. I get up at the end, I say, how many of you are infantrymen? Not one hand goes up. I walk around the room, what's your MOS? I'm a mechanic, sir. Well, what are you doing? I'm in the 240 Golf. I'm on the lead turret in the 2nd vehicle. Okay, well, sir, I work hard all week so I can get my work done so I can go on this convoy. So the warrior spirit within the logistics community, in the division, the wing, the FSSG, and inside the MEF headquarters group was, I want to be part of the action. It's not when there's guns fire that I want to be at my desk. I'd like to be out there, but this report really needs me to be here. The spirit was, I want to get this report done, so tonight when I raise my hand, because there's more volunteers than we had convoys to go on, that I'll get the opportunity to go forward, to go out the gate at 2,200 under NVGs, to drive a day and a half to 2 days up to the harbor gate on the Turkish border and bring back these trucks going through Mosul, up through RPG Alley, all the way to the end. And that night at 2,200, they strapped it on, they got out there, men and women, no infantry. Everybody there wanted to be there, and everybody there didn't know how to just fire their weapon, they knew how to employ their weapon. Everybody there knew what to do in the immediate action drills if they got hit along the way. And I'll be honest, in some cases, you could feel that adrenaline that they were hoping. They were hoping the enemy, their words, was stupid enough to take them on, because they were prepared to spank them, and they were prepared to come back with all 40 trucks plus all their warriors and teach the enemy a lesson on the way. So that's a typical convoy. That was just one I had the opportunity to sit in on the brief on. 4,000 of those convoys went out during Rich's time over there as the FSSG commander. 4,000 convoys, combat convoys heading out. Another 90 combat patrols, which they kicked out because they provide their own security at Taqadum, where the FSSG was. And out at Al-Assad, the wing warriors provided their own security at Al-Assad, because the infantry was needed to do the counterinsurgency operation. So it wasn't free a warrior to go fight, it was be a warrior. Be a warrior in the fight. And that's the way they approached it. And every Marine a rifleman was much more than a bumper sticker, and it went further than a rifleman. It was every Marine a warrior, prepared to be in the fight, and actually, hankering, in some cases, looking, excited about the fact, I'm so good, I hope they try us on. And if you think back to your days of playing sports, a long time ago for some of us, but there's two kinds of linebackers. When you're inside the 5-yard line, you have the linebackers on one side going, God, I hope they don't come my way. 2 seconds on the clock, first and goal from the 1, last play of the game, I hope they go to the right, because I don't want that responsibility. Then you have those who lean forward and say, come on, you got to come this way, because I know I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop you dead in your tracks. I want to control the destiny. I want the ball with 1 second left on the clock. I want to run the ball with 1 second left on the clock. I want them to come my way with 1 second left on the clock. And that was the common spirit of the log warriors who were forward. And it just made your eyes water, and it just made you proud to be part of such a great team. And I'll say, Rich, I'll embarrass you, that starts at the top. The command climate created by the FSSG commander, which cascaded down through the FSSG commanders and the senior staff non-commissioned officers, was that kind of a command climate. That they knew they could take their creative juices, they could come up with creative solutions, and that General Kramnik would back them, and he did. And it worked well. Second little vignette as we get ready for the fight for Fallujah. I'll make this a little bit shorter, I promise. We're getting ready to go into the fight, and we bring in about 6,000 additional fighters, warriors from the Blackjack Brigade of the U.S. Army. 2 mechanized battalions come on in. Got to have a place to build them. You have to be able to feed them. You have to have water for them. You just can't bring house guests in and tell them to put up their own tents and sleep in the cold. This is November. It's getting pretty cold at night. And then, on top of that, 8 battalions of Iraqis show up. And same thing applies. We have to build a camp for the Iraqis. The contractor, well, we contracted out. They rocketed the camp the first night. All the contractors took off. So we're really in a dilemma here. And the FSSG, along with the MEF engineer group, the Seabees, just stepped aside and they took it on. And they built the camp to house all the warriors that came in. So they were greeted with everything short of a minute on their pillow. And they were welcome. And all they had to do was concentrate on the order and the combat that was coming up in the next couple of days. And then in addition to that, General Kramnik built what became affectionately known as the Iron Mountain, because we learned the lessons because General Madison and General Convoy had cataloged them. The fact that in the first Fallujah fight, they cut off the MSRs. They shut them down so the logistics, the ammunition, the fuel, the chow, the water could not get through. And General Kramnik and his warriors were smart enough to build a 17-day Iron Mountain at all the forward operating bases. So even if they cut the lines of communication, shut them down totally, that we could continue the fight for 2 weeks without a break in tempo. And that's from the wing to the division and the FSSG. And not only did they do that, once they had the Iron Mountain built, when the fight broke out, they supplied the Iron Mountain to the point that we never fell below 16 days in any of those forward operating bases, even during the heaviest of fighting. A couple times we used some of the Dodics, the ammunition, very heavily, like tank rounds, grenades, and concussion grenades. But Rich Kramnik and his warriors found them, and they found a way to get them flown in quickly so that there was never a gap. A warrior on the battlefield never wanted for the tools of war to prosecute that fight. Never had to come up with a substitute, never had to go to a branch or a sequel for an item because it was always there. And the FSSG, they made that happen. Then it came the elections. Big strategic time. 30 January is coming up on top of us. Al-Anbar, you probably read about it. The election committee decided that Al-Anbar was not safe, so we didn't register anyone. And then they were starting to waver as to whether or not we'd even have elections. And we convinced them at that point that we could bring security, bring election workers in from down in the south. So the wing and the FSSG came up with a transportation plan, and they came up with a way to pay them. So what we did is we went down to Najaf, where the 11th MEU was. They had extra workers. And we picked them up and we brought them up to Cotton, where the FSSG was. The FSSG built a building for them. They built schoolrooms so we could teach them. And then when the kits, the election poll kits showed up, it was some assembly required. Well, I mean, just remember the old days of Christmas Eve, scrapping your knuckles up. There was a lot of assembly required. But General Kramnik and the warriors out there with the CBs and the Army engineers all working together, one team, one fight, they built all the polling stations and they pressed them on out. So when the sun came up, when the sun rose on election day, the polling centers were established. And more importantly, they were established where they were supposed to be, and that they were established with class. It wasn't just some shingle hanging over a porta-john. It was a building that was built appropriately, right by the standard, and they made it happen. And Rich, you know better than I do that the country of Iraq will be forever deeply in debt to you, the FSSG, and the other warriors that made that happen. Right before the elections go, General Latansky, the division commander, approaches and said, we need about another 600 warriors to pull off the elections, to secure areas where we can take care of the polling sites with quick reaction forces, because the Iraqis had the polling sites secure. So we came up with a concept one night on the VTC and said, you know what? We need to give those warriors who have not had the opportunity to go forward and be in the fight the opportunity to take part in something bigger than themselves. So we said, let's build a provisional security battalion. It later became labeled the Spartacus Battalion. If you remember the movie when things got tough and they said, you know, when old Kirk Douglas jumped out and said, I'm Spartacus, and somebody else jumped up and said, no, I'm Spartacus. And that was kind of the atmosphere and the climate that caught on. And we finally ended up with 575 individuals who formed the Spartacus Battalion. They went to 19 different sites. And of that 575, there were 5 infantry of 575. There were over 150 women who were critical to the vetting process to let the Iraqi women come to be vetted to go into the polling station. Every one of them raised their hand. As a matter of fact, we had to turn people back, volunteers back. And almost every one of the 575 had something to do with the logistical community, either with the wing, the FSSG, or the division. And when it came time, 10 days later, they trained for a week, and they went into the fight for 10 days. And some of them got into firefights, and they actually, the enemy was sorry that they took them on in the outskirts of Fallujah. When it was all said and done, General Latansky approached me and said, hey, sir, you know, why don't we just kind of keep them around for another 30 days? These guys are pretty good. And so it was one of those, I don't know, this was kind of an experiment. It was adventure learning. This is a great concept. Let's take somebody who really wants to be there, and they did, and let's trust us to have the ability to train them, and we did, and let's trust them to have the professionalism to execute, and they did. And I'm sure that those 575, they were all drawing little dimples on their chin, you know, the old Kirk Douglas look. But by the time it was all said and done, that was bragging rights. That was bragging rights for folks who maybe tried like hell to be on a convoy and just never, ever had the opportunity. And as I promised General Hagee, you know, General Williams gave me a note right before I came up and said Abraham Lincoln did it in less than 300 or 400 words, sir. It was something like that. 300. Ooh. I got 8 words left. I guess what I would say is that every Marine is a rifleman, and every warrior who is out there understands what combat's all about. And the beauty of it is that when the guns are fired, as General Mattis has said many, many times, true warriors move to the sound of the guns. Because when gunfire starts, one of 2 things happen. And the psychologist will tell you it's either fight, you know, the hackles go up and you roll into the fight, or flight. It's feet don't fail me now, and you go the other direction. And for my entire time over there, coming in behind Lieutenant General Conway, my other hero, my entire time over there, I never saw anyone pointed in the wrong direction when the gunfire started. I never saw a convoy say that they couldn't push down 2 more blocks to get the ammunition right up to the battalion, to the company that needed it during the Fallujah fight, during the Najaf fight, and during the multiple fights inside of Ramadi. I never saw a logistician not do their job because they took indirect fire at Al-Assad or Taqadum or Kalzu or any of the other forward operating bases. And there were 26, and all 26 of those were serviced by the combat service support warriors of the FSSG. You take the Marine Corps-wide team and you put it under great leadership like General Kramnik, and you create an environment where it can grow and it can excel, and by God it does. I'll just end with a quote that, I don't know who said it, maybe I'll take credit for it next year because I like it, but it goes that all evil needs to succeed is for good men and women to do nothing. And if you stop and think about that, there's plenty of reasons to do nothing. No one would find me guilty if I stayed here, if I stayed doing my job, didn't get it done early, so I could go out and be part of a change, be part of the fight. But each and every one of these combat service support warriors had the same spirit as the warriors from the wing and the warriors from the division and the MEF headquarters group. They set the tone and they set the standard. And I'll tell you right now, the bar is high. And if evil thinks it has a chance in this fight, I can tell you right now that evil's in for a rude awakening, because I'm going to put my money on the warriors that are forward deployed. Thank you very much. Hurrah.